So hey Lawn Care Nation, today I want to do a quick video about lawnmower blade sharpening. This video is just as much for me as it is for you guys. Traditionally, I have always just sharpened my lawnmower blades with an angle grinder using a regular angle grinding wheel on it. But I've been noticing a lot of people discussing and talking about using actual what is known as flap discs, and that's these discs that have these pieces of sandpaper on them. So I thought I would experiment today and see how much of a difference using a flap disc makes over using a traditional grinding wheel like I have on this one. So I've got the blades off my Exmark Commercial 30, and we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. Now traditionally when I'm sharpening blades, I'm just freehanding it. I'm holding the blade in one hand, holding the grinder in the other hand, and just being really steady and going along that edge there. So I'm going to do the same technique today, so I'm not changing anything from what I'm used to doing, except for the actual grinding wheel or flap disc. So let's go check it out. Okay, so this is the grinder I'm using, just a 4.5-inch basic angle grinder. It's actually still got the original discs that came on it. I'm not sure what grit or if it's coarse or fine or how these are rated. It doesn't have anything written on it in terms of that. As far as the flap discs go, I got a 3-pack that came with a 40 grit, a 60 grit, and an 80 grit, it looks like. So I got 3 different ones to choose from. I think I'll probably start with a 60 grit when I do it, just to, because I'm not familiar with them, just to see how that one does, and then I can move up more aggressively if that one takes too long. So like I said, we'll get started with the actual regular grinding wheel and go from there. So here's the blade off the Exmark Commercial 30. You see the edges are pretty dull at the moment. And there's the other side. So I'll do the one side first with the angle grinder and the regular grinding wheel, and then we'll use the flap disc on the other side. So let's get started. So you can see the edge there, nice and sharp. Very little effort. So let's switch out to a flap disc and see how much difference that makes. Start with the 80 grit. Okay, so right off the bat, even with the 80 grit, I can definitely say that was so much easier than using the traditional grinding wheel. And you can see the edge is just so much cleaner looking. Super sharp. Even the backside there just takes off just a perfect amount versus the grinded edge. Flip it around to get the same kind of view. A lot rougher. You can kind of see that it's more rounded, where this side is a lot flatter. It's easier to keep it a lot flatter versus the grinding edge. Even the back side, I try to just clean up the edge there. You can see it's just the edge that the grinding wheel touches there, versus on the flap disc, because it's so flat, you get a nice clean edge there as well. Okay, so it did really well on the Exmark commercial blade that's in fairly good condition. But what if you're trying to do a really old blade? Here's a blade I dug out of my scrap pile from the old Honda HRC 216. You can see it's been sharpened quite a bit over the years. It's past its sort of lifespan here, and you can see it's got a nice big kind of curvature in the blade here, and on this side as well it's got a couple little chunks and stuff. So let's see how the flap disc does in terms of trying to clean this up. Still just using the 80 grit. So you can see a big difference there, just a couple of passes. Clean that up really nice, but there's still that curvature. Now normally what I would do, as you can see from this chunk here, is as there's little pieces missing and divots and stuff, I would take the actual grinding wheel and hit the blade this way to kind of straighten that out and take out any really big divots or chunks. Try to just make it a little bit better, clean it up. So I'm not sure if you can do that with the flap disc, or if it's just for doing those initial edges. So let me hit this edge and sacrifice the flap disc just in case, and see what it can do there. So actually it worked surprisingly well to straighten out that edge there. I just ran it alongside there, and it was actually taking out quite a bit. Made a nice flat surface on there, and then ran it over a couple more times, and it's actually got a nice clean cutting edge on it now. So actually not too bad compared to what it looked like when we started. So I'm going to actually switch the flap disc out. Let's take a look at it first. So you can still see it's in still pretty decent shape there. A little bit of wear on the edges, probably mostly from doing that edge there. But let's swap it out for the 40 grit. That's the most aggressive one I've got, and just see what that's will do. So here's the 40 grit, very aggressive. So you can see there, it actually made a nice cutting edge. I was able to go along the side there and basically grind out that divot using the flap disc. I probably wouldn't recommend it. I'd probably still use a grinding wheel if you're going to have to take out some major divots, and then use the flap disc, just because, as you can see from here, this more aggressive flap disc took a lot more wear doing that than the finer grit one. So I think I would just leave the flap discs for the actual final finish, and maybe use the grinding wheel if you're going to take out any large imperfections or divots. But overall, it does a really good job. So let's try the 60 grit. See, I'll go grab the other X-Mark blade. Okay, so here's the commercial 30 blade from the other side. So you can see it's about the same condition as that first one. And actually I just noticed here that I've sliced my finger on that commercial 30 blade. I felt it go in. I didn't see anything initially, but you can see it's opened up a bit. So that flap disc does a really good job. It's razor sharp. So here's the other side. We'll do it with a 60 grit flap disc and see how that turns out. No big divots or anything on this one, so we'll just do a basic sharpening. Let's actually check the wear on this one. So a little bit more wear too that I can see on that one. So it seems like the more aggressive the grit, definitely the more wear it's taking. You can see the original 80 grit unit. It's a bit of wear on the edges there. And then the 60 grit, some wear here as well. And then definitely the 40 grit took the most brunt of the wear. So like I say, I would probably stick with either the 60 or the 80 grit. They both seem to do a really good job. In fact, I think I probably prefer the 80 grit. So here is the 60 grit unit. You can see it's got actually a little divot that I didn't notice at first, but not enough to worry about there, versus the 60 grit, or sorry, the 80 grit of that one there. So very, very similar sort of finishes. So there you have it, Lawn Care Nation. I'm definitely a convert, definitely a believer in these flap discs. Hands down, does a way better job than the traditional grinding wheel that I've been using for the past 17 years in my business. So like they say, you learn something new every day. You know, you don't know until you try. So yeah, definitely, I would definitely recommend you trying out one of these flap discs over a standard grinding wheel, if that's what you're using for sharpening your blades currently. So that's it for this one, guys. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing, and we'll catch you in the next one.